I knew there was something.
I'm barely in.
What's that?
I'm barely in the picture there.
Fine. You know, for all of technology's wonders, sometimes the smallest little things can cause you some grief. We were going crazy in here trying to get it figured out. How come we couldn't get Jay's mic to work? And after all the gremlins that I've struggled with on the show, I thought, not tonight, please, not tonight. I am not giving up because Jay suggested, well, we can rebook. No, 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 no. You're here. Everything's here. We're going to figure this out. And all it was one little fandom power switch on the back of the mixer. It just took us a little while to find the little devil. So, welcome to Nick's Nights. We have Jay Tysick. He is the president of the, the leader of the Ontario Alliance Party. Or is it the Alliance Party of Ontario?
Well, it's officially registered as the Alliance Party of Ontario, but we put in the request to change the name with Elections Ontario to the Alliance Party.
This is why I'm mixed up. I should know.
So there you go. So now, both are correct right now, but soon it'll be Ontario Alliance.
Okay. Now, as a disclaimer, I got to tell people that I am the interim vice president of the party. That's why you would think I would know. And I did that until somebody more suitable can come along to help the party get off the ground.
There's nobody more suitable, Nick.
Flattery. Here we go. All right. Okay, so let's start right back from the very beginning to kind of lay the groundwork for people who are checking it in. And hi, guys. Listen, by the way, for you, if you're listening online or if you're listening on Facebook, and because we can't take phone calls yet, and I will have that sorted out in January. I had a great meeting today, as I was telling the preview crowd, with some technical support. I'll tell you all about it when the time comes, but we'll be able to take phone calls from Facebook and from the computer. So we'll finally put that demon to rest, and you guys will be able to communicate just like it was an actual bona fide phone-in show. So we're working on that. However, for tonight, if you want to send an email to, you can send it to nick@latenightcouncil.com. You can send it. I'll open up my email and keep an eye on that, so that if you have any questions you want to ask Jay, you can certainly do it that way. You can post them here in Facebook, and I'll try to keep up to it while Jay's talking, so that if there's any questions that come along, I'll make sure that we address them as the evening progresses. But because this is the best way that we can communicate at the moment, and I want your feedback, and I'm sure Jay does too. So we'll do everything in our power to make that possible. We'll talk about some other methods later on. All right, now, yes, Stephanie, and you do a good job of it. Every week you say something that gets me giggling, which is not necessarily a good thing when I'm trying to do a serious show, okay? Anyway, all right, so let's lay the groundwork. First of all, give us a little bit of your history. For those of you who've been living under a rock and don't know who Jay Tysick is, where did you get started in politics, and how did you end up here? That's a long stretch, I know.
That's going back a long time. I hope my memory's still good. No, I started way back when I was young, like I guess a lot of people in politics, helping out on municipal elections, primarily with Rick Shirelli, as you know. Mm-hmm. I really believed in the message, and I just wanted to get involved. And I think it's everyone's duty. If you think there's good that you can do in this world, you need to get involved and try and do it. And the thing we did with Rick, I mean, there was originally the education for the Catholic school, but also the pay-as-you-go method they had in Nepean, which they didn't borrow money. Basically, if you wanted to fund a project, you had to like raise the money through taxes and save it up over time. And there was zero debt in the city of Nepean, which I thought was fantastic. It was a great way to run a government. And I really liked helping them out and keeping them in office for that reason. So.
Okay, so that's how you get started. Let's now lay the groundwork for your attempt to carry the banner for the PC Party of Ontario, because that's really with Goldie Ghamari and all that stuff. All that started. Is that over a year? Well over a year now?
Well, not well over a year, but yeah, it's about a year ago.
About a year, okay.
A little more, a year.
As you get older, things start to blur together. It's harder to sort it out. Anyway, so you want to throw your hat in the ring, so to speak, and take a shot at becoming the candidate for the PC Party of Carleton.
Yeah, it's a new riding. It used to be Nepean Carleton. The way that actually happened, I like most people, we were frustrated with 14 years of Liberal government, the overspending, the bad policy, the government's push to really interfere with people's private lives. It was just overreach. So a lot of us saw the PC Party as the answer to that, the opposition, and believed Patrick Brown when he said he would be all those things. So I was watching that closely. It wasn't my intention originally to run. Now, what happened was in Carleton, I saw a candidate who was the antithesis of those things. I mean, that was Goldie. She had made a lot of statements about supporting the carbon tax and wealth redistribution and all this stuff that was just very liberal to me. So there was a guy, Doug Thompson, who I knew, who was running, and I knew him from City Hall. He had been a very good representative of his constituents for many years, 30 years he was in public service. So I reached out to him to try and help him to win that seat so that we could accomplish all those things we wanted to. And very quickly on, he realized it was rigged. The PC Party was interfering and was trying to make sure they got their preferred candidate. So he withdrew, and understandably, he just said, at this point in my career, I don't need this. And I still saw the problem. I still wanted to see that positive change and knew that Goldie wouldn't be the one to bring it about. So that's when I stepped in. And in my attempt to win that nomination, I mean, I worked very hard. They did the same tricks, but they shortened, of course, the time frame to the nomination. They ended up giving me 12 days to go and run an entire campaign, where she had over a year. And so in those 12 days, I actually had more votes than her. I was able to get more than half of the membership to support me. And then the party just said, you're not going to be allowed to run. So all the hopes that we had for the PC Party really being kind of the savior, coming in and undoing 14 years of bad Liberal government, it turned out that they were just going to do the same corruption, the same nepotism, the same debt, and tax and spend. So I realized that it just wasn't going to be an option through the PCs, and that's when we started to look at other options.
Now, this wasn't unique to you. This is something that's happened, I think the last count was 65 times across Ontario, and there's only, 150 ridings?
24.
124.
Yeah.
So out of 124 ridings, it happened well over half
so far
that we know about.
Yeah, when he did it, when it was 65, that's because he declared all 65 to date were now appointments. So
he just said, screw you, grassroots. Here's who's going to represent you.
Yeah, and he's been doing that ever since. And for how this came to be known to me anyway, was when they kind of rigged it against me and then kicked me out. I went very public. I was very outspoken about why that's wrong, about the need to preserve democracy, about the grassroots. And at that time, because they had moved it up, as I said, mine was the first nomination. So I went public, and then suddenly people started to reach out to me all over the province saying that the same thing was happening in their nomination, which shocked me. And because I had the media attention, they were saying, well, we don't want to go public because we're still trying to win the nomination, but could you tell our story? So I started becoming almost a spokesperson for everyone who was getting cheated politically by the PC Party. And it grew from there. We tried to address it originally internally according to the rules of the party using the Constitution. And I believe there are some people that were still trying to do that recently, and they just got kicked out of the party. But we realized early on, with them in control of the rules and them being so corrupt, there was no way we were going to achieve that goal. So we decided that the province needed a new party that would represent the grassroots and uphold democracy.
I guess in my case, I got to a point where I realized that Patrick Brown was just another wolf in sheep's clothing. When he turned his back on landowners and SOCONs and people like that. Now, any political party has to have more to it than just a narrow focus. Like the PCs have never been just SOCONs or just landowners. They've always had a broader tent than that, a bigger tent. But when you turn your back on 30% of your voting base,
more than 30.
Well, okay, conservatively 30%, that sends a signal. And considering how a lot of us, me included, felt like, okay, now what do I do? Because obviously my point of view is not welcome. They want my money, but they don't want my time. They don't want my input. So why would I feel loyal to them when they've demonstrated they don't seem to be very loyal to what I believe in? Now, no party, including this one, mirrors my worldview perfectly, because when you get a collection of human beings together, it's a game of give and take. But there was all take, no give. So for me, that's kind of what broke the last straw that broke the camel's back when I found out about some of this stuff. But I wanted to talk about, at this point, okay, so now the realization has come along, said, okay, we're not going to get anywhere this way, because there was a real movement about trying to change the party from the inside. And let's talk about that and why that was, why we ran up against that brick wall, or why people would feel that way. And it's understandable, but why we just didn't feel that was the right way to go.
Well, originally we thought that the problem was Patrick Brown. I mean, he had flip-flopped. He had very clearly lied in his nomination when he was running for leader. He had made promises and statements to people that he then reneged on, like flatly. Just said, I'm not doing that, and I never intended to do it. And he even went so far as to say that he regretted ever dealing with the people he had dealt with to win his nomination.
Right.
So originally we thought if we change the leader, fixes the problem. But it turns out in trying to do that, and I'll get to that in a sec, but we found out the problem was much more insidious than just one man. I mean, there's a lot of good people in the PC party, but there's also a lot of bad people. Those people who think the entire goal is winning and anything justifies that goal. Yeah. And so they're very comfortable with that corruption. And I mean, that's a smaller group. Certainly there's still good people, and we believe they'll join us. But back to the point now, when the way that we went about it was, in the Constitution, you can force an AGM if you can get, I think it's like 40% of the riding associations or something, or 30%. So we needed 42 riding associations to agree to call a meeting, and then we could force it. And then from the floor, we could motion to have a leadership review. And if we got most of the vote, we'd win. So that was our goal, and we were working through that. But we even had riding associations that had agreed to work with us on that were willing to see that leadership review. And then shortly after, the party would come in and just kick out those people and replace them with all new people. So we were losing riding associations as quickly as we were gaining them. And then we also realized, under the rules, we could have that vote, but it would require the party executive to actually allow us to have that vote. And then even if we won the vote, it's up to them to decide. And at this point, there was nothing that indicated they would be willing to follow the rules. So that's why we just changed course.
Yeah, okay. So that's, in other words, no matter what you tried, there was nowhere, one blind alley after another.
Yeah.
All right.
The way I do real estate, right? And in the sense of, I buy old properties, fix them up, and you have to make that decision at some point where you look at a property and you think, is the foundation solid enough to make it worth renovating? And in this case, if the foundation is rotten, it's just a bad investment. There's no point. You can renovate it as much as you want, but it's still unstable, and it's still not worth the money that you're going to invest in it. So at that point, it becomes, you just knock it down.
All right. So that's, in other words, that plan goes up in smoke.
Yeah.
There's no room.
The foundation was.
Yeah. What'd you do next?
Oh man, from that point, I didn't actually intend to start a party. We started looking at other parties because we had a good group of people, some amazing people, really solid values people that were working with us to try and force leadership review, and they don't normally work together. So they were kind of going, well, we tried that, it's over. And I said, well, no, we still have the problem. We can't just give up. And we've got this great group who would never normally be together. Let's keep them together. So we then tried to go and we looked at, I mean, I won't mention the parties, but we looked at other parties to see if we could convince them to represent our values. And we tried that for several months. We worked with a few parties trying to write a constitution, trying to, lay down some policy. And it just wasn't going anywhere. It was more of the same. It was more of that. The goal is to get elected and nothing, you know? So we decided if we're going to make this positive change, if we're going to create something that's substantial, we have to do it from the ground up on our own, and we can't work with people already integrated into that system.
Okay, well, somebody's asked the question. Matthew wants to know what you think of the party, what the PC party platform. You know, the people's, what is it? The people's promise?
Yeah, the guarantee.
Guarantee. That's the word I'm looking for. The people's guarantee by the PC, just put up by the PC party.
I was actually at that convention where they announced it, and you know, for those of us who follow politics, I would say there was nothing surprising in what Patrick announced, especially since we had seen it before in the Liberal platform. So, but as far as the people's guarantee, I mean, I'll get into the specifics of his platform and why it's a bit hypocritical. But I mean, even if it weren't, a guarantee is only as good as the guy who gives it. And, you know, Patrick has proven himself to, well, let's just say his guarantee is garbage. So the next thing, his hydro plan, and this is ridiculous because they're not actually addressing the root cause of the hydro issues. He criticized, rightfully so, Kathleen Wynne when she announced a reduction. Because if you remember, Patrick was saying that under his government, rates would continue to go up.
Yeah, he's never said he's
nothing
bring
we
them down.
could do to bring them down because of the contracts that were already signed. And, well, there's the answer. But he said you can't change that, so the rates will continue to go up. Now, Kathleen Wynne came out and said she was going to reduce the rates. And he criticized her, rightfully, saying she's borrowing money, she's kicking the can down the road, she's leaving it to our children to pay off that new debt. And he was absolutely right. So then for him to come out and go, guess what, we're going to reduce the hydro rates the same way, but we're going to do it even more. So if he's critical of her plan, shouldn't we be even more critical of his? Because it's the same thing but worse.
Now, one of the things I noticed about his plan, and look, there's some things in there, like cutting in personal income taxes by 22.5%. If I believed him, if I thought that was who wouldn't want a tax cut? Like, it's hard to argue with a tax cut. But as you just pointed out, it's only as good as the guy who makes it.
Well, even more, if you look, he's also running a deficit. His budget promises a deficit. So, I mean, we're going to be borrowing. We're basically borrowing more money to give a tax break, which is a temporary, to use their words. That's not a sustainable solution. That's not a solution. It's a Band-Aid. He's doing exactly what the Liberals do. He's using our money to buy votes, and our kids are going to have to pay for it. And that's why I call it a joke and said that the guarantee was garbage.
All right, so let's get back to discussing more about the Alliance Party. We can talk. We'll get into more of the PC Liberal NDP cabal, if you want to call it that, because I've been saying now for months that there really is only one kind of party before Alliance came along that isn't, you know, they're all left wing. It's just a matter of degrees, okay? And it doesn't matter. You can change the flag at the top of the mast all you want. If the policies underneath that doesn't change, then you've got the same government just wearing a different suit. Okay, so let's go back to the Alliance. So you decide, I know that there was some conversation with some other parties out there trying to find a fit. There were certain names that we liked that we tried to work with. That didn't pan out. So the decision's made, okay, fine. Since we can't...
I think it panned out. Everybody that I love everybody that came on board.
I meant as far as finding another party that was close enough to us that we could build that relationship with instead of having to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Because reinventing the wheel, which is what we did by starting another party, certainly was a learning experience.
It was a lot of work too.
Yeah, it was. A lot of people poured a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But for those of you, you know, I have a friend on Facebook who's always going, look, if you stop sitting behind that microphone, get out and do something. And the whole time, this is going on in the background, and I can't tell him about it. So finally, I got a chance to say, I am. It's one thing to talk, but you got to have a solution. So let's talk about what happened in the initial stages. The decision gets made. Okay, we'll go down the new party route. How did that come about?
Actually, it was an interesting set of circumstances. At that time, I was doing a lot of traveling and a lot of reaching out to people. And like I said, a lot of people were reaching out to me. So I was kind of going around the province trying to meet with groups and individuals who had a lot to offer to try and bring them on board with whatever plan we were going forward. I mean, the idea was we needed solutions. So we were going out looking for them and looking for people who could help us with those solutions. And I met this one guy who is now the president of the Ontario Alliance, Joshua Erickson.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And we had been speaking. I love this guy's policy, like philosophy about how government should work. So at one point during our conversation, he goes, "Oh, you know who you should talk to?" And he said, Bill Cook. The name wasn't familiar to me, but he used to be the deputy leader of the Reform Party. And he actually had already reserved a party name, the Alliance Party of Ontario, back almost a little more than a year ago now. And he said, "You'd love this guy and he'd love you. You should call him." So he gave me his number. I called him, and he was right. I mean, we weren't the exact same on policy ideas, but in terms of how government should run and what its function should be, it was spot on. And I was really impressed by this guy. You could tell that he had many years of experience and lots of thought and insight into this. So we talked over the course of a couple of weeks, a number of times, and he just had some fantastic views. So we agreed to meet. So it was actually at the time of the leadership race, the federal leadership race. We were down in Toronto. So I'd given him a call, said, "I'm up with some of my guys. We'd like to meet with you." He was up in Owen Sound area. So we went and met with him. We had a conversation, lasted a few hours. We actually missed the vote count for the leadership because we were having this conversation. And it was funny because I was watching it at the corner of my eye on the screen inside the restaurant. And I'm just trying to see who won while trying to focus on this.
I'm still blown away by how well Brad Truss did.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on a little bit of tangent. You know how they were listing from the bottom, like they were going number 14, number 13, number da-da-da. They got to about number 5, and I'm like, they missed Brad. It was hilarious. Yeah, no, it's just, hey, good for Brad. I mean, he did fantastic. But anyway, now back to the point. So we talked with Bill Cook, and I loved it. I loved the conversation we had. We were spot on. So at the end, I went, "Look, I'm going to cut to the chase here. We want to activate your party. We want to register it, and we want to fill it with our people. And this is what we hope to accomplish. And we want you to be a candidate for us." And Bill was like, originally he was like, "Yeah, I'm liking that idea. Just give me a couple of days to think about it." He called back the next day and went, "Let's do it." And so we went from there, and that's how we got Alliance. But this was really just, honestly, to answer your question in a much shorter, better way, it was really grassroots how this all came to be. It was traveling around, talking with people, hearing what their issues were, asking them what they think the solution is, and working with them to achieve it. That's really all it was, like just throughout the whole province, as many people as we could. That way we reached out to it, and this is what came of it.
Okay, so the decision's been made to build a party. I got to play a couple of commercials, so bear with me for a few moments. We'll get we'll take care of that. When we come back, we'll have more with Jay Tysick about what happened next with the Ontario Alliance, and we're going to get into the meat of the principles and the Constitution and all kinds of stuff. It's really the juicy stuff here in a minute, but we got to set the table. That's what we're doing here, trying to set the table. So you listen to this, and we'll be right back. Once I hit those, there we go.
It's all Stephanie. It's all Stephanie.
Yeah. No, just kidding. She can hear you, by the way. The laptop mic's still on. All right. Thanks for staying with us, folks. This is the Nick's Nights Show. My guest in studio on your right, my left. No, the other way around. Your left, my right. What's that?
It's on their right.
He's sitting here. You can see him. He's right there. Okay, who cares what side? He's always on the right. How's that? No matter what side of the room he's on the right. All right. Anyway. Okay, so, excuse me. There was a little gathering this summer, and the foundation of the party, the people who were going to be doing the grunt work, got together and had a kind of a weekend leadership seminar, think tank kind of thing that took place. And they talked a lot about different things. Let's talk about the principles that guide the party, because I think that matters. Now, through the magic of technology, I think I have it. I might, maybe I speak too quickly. Doc downloads, is it downloads? Let's see. I think I should have, you know what, if I was on the ball, I'd have pulled this up earlier. And I can't see a damn thing without my glasses. You're over here. So bear with me just a second. I may have what I'm looking for. And he already knows what it is. That's the Constitution, I think. Principle. Oh, look at that. Principles. Let me blow this up so old men like me can read it.
Not too far, you're down.
Yeah, I know. I'm just going nuts here. Back. I'm kind of like Sergeant Schultz. Back. Oh, yeah. Declaration of Principles. We only got to go down, no, that far. So I scroll back up here, and I click this magic little button right there. Say voila. There we go. We can read it, and I can make the whole thing smaller so we can still see the screen. Close that. Okay, so the declaration. What's that now?
I'm just trying to see which version this is. I think that's the one of the original versions.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if it's not
enough.
Yeah, I was going to say we can work with this.
Yeah.
All right, so we put together a declaration of guiding principles. These are the things that the party rests on, the fundamentals, the foundation, if you will. And I'll just blow through this rather quickly, and we can talk about them. We believe in the. If I got the first one, that would help.
But if that's an older version, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're not. Okay. Anyway, if they're not, if they've been revised slightly since then, since this was written.
Yeah.
Well, do you see anything in there as I scroll through this that is different than what's on the?
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay.
Yeah, I see several points missing.
Well, then you can correct them.
Okay.
All right. So I'll give you the first line out of each principle rather than read the whole thing. We believe in the ethical and accountable. Oh my God! Sure, I'm going to read this. We believe in the ethical and accountable execution of business of government, which, in a free and democratic society, is to secure the life, liberty, and property of the people through the prudent development and judicial enforcement of sensible laws and policies. Okay, that's the first sentence.
You're gonna find that repeated. They're all one sentence.
Yeah. All right. So you believe in limited government. You recognize the natural family as the basic building block of a free and democratic society. See, I can pull it down. We acknowledge that people may choose a secondary role of government to provide essential services. Hey, there's a good idea. Subject to reasonable limits designed to prevent incitement to violence against people, we believe in the freedom of conscience, of worship, speech, and association. Okay. We acknowledge that a responsible government might be compelled from time to time to adopt budgets that are not balanced, but you reject the idea of accumulating and passing on to future generations public debt through regular budget deficits. In other words, you can't have perennial budgetary deficits.
Yeah.
Okay, we reject the divisive politics of envy and resentment that have come to dominate the public discourse. And that's pretty much it. So those are the guiding principles. When we talk about this, especially under when we put this together, because there's a lot of people out there who would say, well, that's our party's charter. Okay, because let's face it, conservative principles are pretty straightforward.
Well, except that other parties don't have a charter, and this is really important that we did that.
The principles, you mean?
Yeah, well, that's part of the charter, the preamble. And so we did that intentionally because we've seen what happens with parties who get a leader who maybe has a different value system than what the party was started with. So in the case of like a Patrick Brown, sure, the PC party constitution is okay. It's good if you look at it. There's no glaring issues, but he just chose to ignore it, and the executive allowed him to. And so we wanted something that would prevent that, no matter who the leader was. You know, the less you have to trust the individual, the better. Like the more you can put it into a system of law. And so one of the things, not only did we state our values and principles like that, which they don't really do, but we put it in a separate document in a charter, which is one of the three elements that make up our Constitution. And then we made that charter non-amendable once it's ratified by the membership, which means you can't make changes to it. So that then becomes our guiding document for all policy creation for the way we operate. So this is something that is unique to us. And the reason why that's important is because over time, we've seen this, things tend to get softened. People move in and they go, well, that's a nice value, but we could also do this, and maybe it's too strongly worded, whatever. And they start to soften the document, and they start to soften the values of the party as a whole.
Until it becomes meaningless.
So the fact that we've made this a separate document that lists clearly what we're about and made it unamendable, it'll forever be the values of this party. The party can't change its values once they're enshrined. Now, if you look at that, there's nothing in there that you wouldn't want changed anyway. that you would want changed. Like it's a very solid ideology.
Now, okay, so that's the principles, and I don't have any problem with them. But let's talk about the charter and how we made sure, and how it was made possible. We prevented, and I say we in the royal sense.
There's a lot of folks involved.
Yes,
in this. Good people,
absolutely.
Good ideas and good contributions.
So when the party, in its founding moments, when it's forged in the crucible of sitting around and chewing the fat, so to speak, they decided that they were going to make sure that we couldn't have a Patrick Brown come in and just drop people in wherever he wanted them, and to make sure that when the people of his particular riding wanted candidate A over candidate B, they got candidate A, no matter what the leader thought. What was talk about the mechanism of how that works, because that's huge, especially with what's going on with the PC party right now. Because we expect this out of the Liberals, the NDP, who cares about, but I'm serious. I mean,
I would watch them like a hawk if I were you.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm talking about how they go around picking their candidates.
Yeah,
I couldn't care less.
Well, if you look, actually, there's been a big move. I'm going to step off the question a bit and then come back to it. There's been a move lately, just in all politics at all levels, that we see that's moving away from democracy. You see it back in, 2014, 2015, when Trudeau basically said, if you hold these values, you will not be allowed to be a candidate for a party. And then you got Patrick Brown doing the same thing, just less obviously. So at this point, and now in the news, the Liberal candidates federally are putting forward a motion internally in their party that they want their ridings protected. They don't want to, if you're an incumbent, you don't have to go to a nomination. No one's allowed to challenge you. And it looks like the party is kind of favorable to that. But more and more, they're moving away from grassroots democracy. And let's be honest, because if you have an agenda, it's a lot easier to push your stuff through if you don't have to ask the people what they think.
Yeah, dictatorships are great as long as you're doing the right thing.
Well, except if you're a dictatorship, you're never going to do the right
thing. It was a, yes.
Yeah, no, I get it. So what we wanted to do was kind of restore the democracy in our party and hopefully use that to restore democracy generally. But we've kind of diffused all the authority in the party. So I sit here and say, well, I'm the interim leader and stuff, but I'll be honest, I have a lot of responsibility, but very little power in this party, which is great. And we worked very hard to make sure that would be the case. And one of the things we did was the creation of our regions. And this is unique as well to our party. It acts in a very formal function. So we divided the party up into 15 regions. And I think it's 15 or 16, I can't remember. Yeah. And they're comprised of about 7 to 10 riding associations each. And they're divided based on geography and, even like ideology, of similar culture and all that kind of stuff. So those people would have, and these can be tweaked over time, but they have basically similar values and ideals and similar needs from the government inside those regions. So those 15 regions would then send one regional representative to what's called the regional council. And this council is the real power in our party. So even if I were to make a decision, like say what Patrick Brown did and come out and go, and we're having a carbon tax. And, you heard at that convention, everyone just like gasp, no. Even if I did that, these regions would go, well, no, because according to our constitution, we make policy and approve it. So you can suggest that, but it's not an actual policy. So the same goes with Canada stuff. These regions actually have all the authority, and they get each region gets one vote at that table. So it's spreading it out well enough. And I mean, you know, we're open to suggestions if anyone could find a better way. But I mean, a lot of smart people said this is the best way, and I'm inclined to agree with them after looking at it. So that's what we did to address that issue. Any leader in our party could never do what Patrick Brown has done, and we've set that up structurally to make
sure that can't happen. And I got to tell you, that for me was a big selling feature, because the last thing you want to do is start a brand new organization, and you're right about it being watered down over time. This helps. Now, there's no perfect system. There's always somebody who's going to try to find a loophole or some wiggle room somewhere to try to affect changes that they want. Whether or not the rest of the party wants it, that's not. So we recognize that. But we're making it as difficult as possible for the people who come after us to be able to do those kinds of things. So it may not be perfect, but it's better than anybody else has got right now.
I can't see how anyone could, but I
Well,
mean, just the regional structure that we've come up with, it prevents that. It's fantastic. I mean, and that was some good work by our executive director, our CFO, our president, the board. Like, it was really, really well thought out. I appreciate what they did there.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, while nothing's perfect, this is probably about as close as you can get. And because when you have a grassroots organization, and it's choosing who, the heart of our system is we get to choose who's going to lord over us and for how long. And when we lose that, we've lost it all, because we now have no longer a say. And one of the things that I think we need to underline, well, let me see. Okay, I got to run a couple commercials. When we come back, we're going to talk about, the train left out the station. I'll think of it during the commercials. You watch. Trust me, it'll come back. The train, see, when my train leaves the station, it's not long coming back, because it's a little circle track like this, and the station's here, so the train has to come back sooner or later. So just because the train leaves the station doesn't mean it ain't coming back. You listen to this, we'll be right back. Okay, we can talk about some of the... let's talk about the PC Party platform. No, we did already. I don't know if there's any more we can go over with that. If you want, we can get into...
I was going to talk about just generally how the three parties have failed, but
okay,
and why, what we can do different. But I mean, it's your show. You decide.
No, it's a... No. Oh, shit. Oh, well.
What'd you do?
I shit at the other commercial. I'll run it too. Damn it.
You look like a cyborg.
I know. I look like hell is what I look like.
Ron's such a great guy. How's this winery doing?
Oh, it's doing great.
Yeah, good.
He's winning medals and awards. And
yeah, he's fantastic.
I
love that guy.
Yeah. Surprised I haven't seen him on tonight.
Sorry?
Surprised I haven't seen him on. Da, 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 da. All right, well, the train's still out on the loop, but I have thought of something else. Well, let's talk about the structure of the party where it is at the moment, because being a new party, there's a lot of logistical work that has to be done. You have to develop riding associations. You have to put together your vetting process for potential candidates. And I know I've had at least 2 or 3 people come to me and say, you know, what does it take to be a candidate? You know, there's somebody up in my neck of the woods wants to run against John Yakubuski. And that kind of stuff, because you can't, if we were to just, somebody asked me one time on Facebook when we were discussing this over the last week or so, who are you going to run against Kathleen Wynne? I said, I have no idea, because whoever it is has to go through, whoever's going to be, has to go through the vetting process. If I were to give you John Blithers Flats, you know, or Joe Bloggins.
Is Joe running for us?
Well, he will. Once he gets through the vetting process, whoever you are, wherever you are. The point is that if we would just pick somebody out of the blue, we're defeating the whole purpose. You that makes us no different than anybody else. Everybody, no matter who they are, they have to go through the vetting process. So we can spend some, if you want, let's talk about what kind of situation we're in as far as riding associations are concerned, the development process. What's that like? How does it? Maybe that's the question. How difficult or easy is it to set up a riding association and then begin to vet candidates?
Technically, it's easy.
I love that. Technically.
Yeah, you just fill out the paperwork and submit it to Elections Ontario. It's really simple. But in truth, finding the right people and getting out there into the ridings and hearing the issues and meeting with them, that's a lot of work. We've been holding meetings pretty regularly for a while now, and a lot of people are reaching out to us from the news we've got back in earlier in the year. So we have a pretty good pool to pick from originally, and they've been going out and spreading the word, grassroots style, word of mouth. So a lot of people are coming on board, and now it's finding the right people for the right positions, and then basically giving them the freedom to go and do what they need to do, which is like I said, it's a lot of work. The candidates, for instance, we do have a good number of people interested in becoming candidates. I won't call them candidates yet, because like you said, there is a process.
They have to go through the process.
Fantastic people. I've met with every one of them personally, except for Joe Bloggins. So I got to find so no,
that's
they're
an
all,
inside
they're all
Navy
fantastic,
joke.
and we did a lot of communication with them, a lot of conversations, got a sense of their values and what they hope to accomplish. And I like them. And so now we're passing them through the system. And we'll see. I don't foresee any problems, but I have no say in who becomes a candidate or who doesn't. We've got a very principled guy, someone I like. He helped me on my nomination, and he's the chair of our candidate committee. So he's working on the policy just to see where we're at in the development, so that we could start putting our candidates through that process. And things were very positive. He's saying, it's all based on those values, the ones you read out. Basically, it's a lot of questions to ensure that they uphold those values. And if they pass that, then as long as there's no other competition, in the sense, if another candidate step forward for the same riding, we go to a nomination meeting. Mm-hmm. But we are trying to field 124 candidates. That's our goal, which I believe we'll be able to do. So if there's more than one for the same riding, obviously we'd like to speak to them and say, if you guys wanted to sort it out amongst yourselves and one of you chose to go to another riding, that would be beneficial for the party. But if they choose that they both want that riding, so be it. There's a nomination race.
Okay.
The people decide.
All right. So let's talk about this just in general. Not that I have any intention of being a candidate, but let's say for the sake of this discussion, I say to you, okay, Jay, I want to run in Huron County,
sure,
or whatever riding it is. What kind of information is the party looking for as far as the vetting process? Because people have pasts,
of course,
and sometimes maybe there's some kind of something in their past that, if the party didn't know about it, might cause some problems.
There's very little that I would say would be a problem for us, because we are such an open and grassroots party. And the truth is, they call it the House of Commons for a reason. It's supposed to be common people. It's common people representing other common people. And so I'm not overseeing or doing anything with the vetting process, so I really don't know what questions they're asking, but there are a bunch of questions. I would hope that if there's anything really serious, they would. I
guess it's just basically you want to know, like I'm thinking that you'd want to know, okay, what do you have a criminal past? Have you ever been pardoned? If you have had a criminal record, what is it? And it doesn't mean necessarily that that's going to exclude you, but it's better to tell somebody about your little secrets, so that should they pop up, they say, yeah, we knew about that.
Yeah,
and they can deal with it.
So I don't know what the actual questions are. He does. I didn't ask him to tell me, because it's not really my business. I trust those people. We'll find out at the board meeting. But generally I would think as long as they're on board with what the party stands for, I can't see a problem. And as long as they're forthcoming with everything that we should know about, so that the party isn't surprised, I think that's it. I can't see anybody being excluded, except for they actually don't uphold the values that the party states. And and then there's tons of other parties they can go join if that's the case. I mean, they don't have to run for us.
Well, they can always run for the NDP if they're. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Matthew asked a question. He says people want a website where they can get more information.
We have one.
Okay.
We've got an IT. So much of this is committees, and you got to understand, in a grassroots party, and intentionally designed this way, I can't answer all the questions. I know we have a website. It's not full yet. They're working on it. We have a
so it's under construction.
Yeah, but there is a landing page up there where you can become a member and stuff
I think
like that.
somebody posted that earlier.
It's Ontario
Alliance.ca.
Yes,
there it is.
Yeah.
Ontario-alliance.ca, and that was Stephanie. She put that up. So you can put your name and the email in there, and they will forward you information as it becomes available.
Yeah.
Because that this is all you're really reinventing the wheel down to the ball bearings in the hub. So as much as we'd love to say, oh yeah, you just do this, you just do that, it's a work in progress and it's taking some time. So to answer Matthew's question, it's the situation is, yes, we have a website, it's under construction, and the second it's ready,
but it's up. People can go. They can fill out a form and they can become a member. They can do
stuff. The landing page is ready. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ontario-alliance.ca, you can go there, enter your name and address, but the moment the full-blown website's up, of course, you'll be notified of that as well. Now, so people can now become members. We have the ability to take memberships, and for the sake of this discussion, what does it cost to become a member of the Ontario Alliance?
So we have a committee. I want to cautiously say I think it's $20. Not 100% sure because
I think it's 15 to tell you the truth, but.
So
I'm not trying to put them on the spot.
Yeah,
folks.
no, we've got two. You're just upset because I said that was the wrong value page, right? Now
I'm getting back.
You're specifically asking the questions I don't know. There was discussion because we have a membership committee and we have a finance committee, and they were working jointly. And I saw they had come back with two different recommendations. I don't remember what the final vote was. Which one? We went with it's either 15 or 20.
Well, let's say it's not 100. It's certainly going to be affordable for anybody who wants to become a member. It's my gut feeling is if I remember the meeting right, it was $15. But if it's 20, okay, $20. Yeah. It's not like we're asking for 3 months rent.
No.
Okay. So it's affordable is the bottom line. And
well, we want to keep it grassroots. So I want to go say it was 15. Because I think we decided to go with the lower amount to make it to make it easier for more people to join. Yeah,
and you can also
you're right.
And the maximum that a person can donate to a party is $1,250, right? Between now and December 31st.
Yes.
Okay.
Hugely important.
Yes, it is. But January 1st, they could donate again.
Yes. Because
that's a new year. So I'm making a general hint out there for those who might think that it's Stephanie. Okay, Stephanie says it's $20. Okay, you know what? I'm making a command decision. It's $20, and if it's 15, sorry, but Stephanie, I trust. I think it is $20.
So, as far as the donation, truthfully, and you make a good point. Like we got registered late in the year, and as much as armies march on their bellies, campaigns march on their money accounts. And so it's hugely important for us to be able to accomplish our goals that we raise money. I mean, we want to get some great candidates into ridings and get them elected. That costs money. And we did get a late start because of how long it took for Elections Ontario to register us. So, yeah, we've got literally, I guess now it's 26 days left in this year to do all the fundraising we're going to do for 2017. So that is a big push that we're going to have to make.
Okay.
And we want to send a big message, too, that the party is supported.
All right. With that said, we're going to take our top of the hour break. When we come back, we'll get into a little more about what the immediate future holds, what political aspirations are. We can talk about politics in general from an alliance point of view. So there's plenty more straight ahead. If you have somebody that you think might want to know about the Alliance Party, get a hold of them, tell them to get on Facebook. and come on the Facebook live feed, or you can give them the online information. Just go to latenightcouncil.com, click on that. They can listen to it on live. You know what I mean? They can listen online live, which is what I'm trying to say. And we're going to be gone for about 90 seconds. It's time for me to go and trot off to the little boys' room. I'm just checking the mail at the moment while we're sitting here.
You know you're going to have like 6 emails telling you what the exact amount is.
Yes, I know. I realize that, which is a good thing, I suppose. All right. With that said, I'm going to play the little U right there. Okay, so you listen to this. We'll be back in time to visit the little boys' room and maybe grab a little drink. We'll be right back. A non-alcoholic drink, that is. We'll be right back. Oh, yeah. That was good. That makes sense. All right. Timed it perfectly. All right. Thanks for staying with us, folks. Okay, in the next hour, I wanted to get into a couple of things with Jay. You mentioned money. That's always a critical point. Memberships, they are affordable, $20. It's not like we're asking for the moon. So, what is the Alliance's goal for, if you have actually set one, if the committee's actually come up with one? I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist. What kind of dollar figure do you think is realistic between now and the end of the year, rolling into next year? How much do you think you're going to need, and how much do you think you can raise in, let's say, the next 120 days?
120 days? Well, I know we've set a goal for this year of $1 million. So, I mean, that's bold. And I think everything we've done has been bold, and we've managed to succeed. So there's no reason why this shouldn't be the same. It's going to be a lot of work. But truthfully, the amount of money we're going to need to make a serious show in the next election, that's reasonable. And I believe with the teams we have, with the way that people have responded to what we're doing, $1 million is very reasonable. Okay, so that's the target. And that's because $1 million is really,
it sounds like a lot, but if you think about if you can bring on at $20 a membership, it doesn't take long for that money to start to add up.
Oh, I think it's fewer than 100 people in each riding.
So
it's
there
about
you
80
go.
people per riding. If we sell that, then, but more importantly, the donations, they're going to be necessary.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you're talking about a new party, everybody wants to know about policy. They want to know, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? What about the Green Energy Act? What about taxes? What about the environment? What about blah, 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 blah. They want to know. So, I know for a fact we haven't worked out policies on all of these things yet. Let's talk about how we're going to go about developing the policies.
Well, grassroots, obviously. So what we've kind of done is we're going to point out and we're going to get feedback. We're going to point out to members, to others, to generally like the population, the issues we think need to be addressed for this province to function properly again.
Right.
For us to go back to the success and that we had before, and for people to prosper, we're going to say these are the things that need to change. How they need to change, we're leaving that to the people. So we're going to offer some suggestions we have, but generally, because of the time constraints, we can't just hold a simple policy convention and say, tell us everything you think. We're going to pick specific points that need to be addressed, send it out, ask them to provide feedback, tell us, what you think, and if you can think of other things we should be addressing, but tell us how we should address these issues. And like I said, we'll put out some suggestions as well. We've thought about them. We've got some things we think will work, so we're going to ask for their feedback on those as well. But generally, it's going to have to come from the membership. It's going to have to come from the people. So this is the way we're addressing it. So yeah, we don't have any policy formed officially yet. As I told you, we have that regional council anyway that ultimately has to make that decision. But yeah, that's the approach we're taking. We're going to be directly soliciting.
So it's the bottom up, not the top down.
Absolutely. Which, I mean, Patrick talked about having the largest policy, what do you call it there? He said...
convention?
Yeah, no, but he called it something specific in it, and it sent up red flags. He called it consultation. Like where we're doing grassroots development, he did grassroots consultation and basically said, give us your thoughts and decisions. And the absurdity, I mean, one of the packs on education where he's had a lot of problems on that file, and rightfully so, he made his mother the head of that policy council. Like, yeah.
His mother?
Yeah, his own mother was heading up one of the packs to create the policy on education. So,
was she a teacher? Did she have any extra skills in that area? Or that's bizarre.
She was Patrick Brown's mom. That's about all you need. I mean,
well, I guess.
So, but anyway, so we're going to go the real grassroots. We're going to feed people a lot of questions and ask them for the responses, and then let them dictate what those policies are going to be through the regional council. So I can't tell you what our policies are going to be. I know what I'd like to see them come out as. But generally, it's all going to be what's in that guiding document that you read earlier.
Well, there's a couple comments here that I think are worth repeating. Don says, I'd love to see recall mechanism as part of the policy. We can talk about that, about recall mechanisms in general and why they never get adopted. Okay? Because, Don, to be completely honest with you, there's no party alive that will vote against its own interest. The other side of that coin, the other thing to keep in mind is when you...
I don't know if that's true. But
well,
yeah.
Let me finish the explanation. The other side of that sword, the back side of that knife maybe, is that even if the party, whoever it is, say for the sake of the alliance, put in a recall mechanism, imagine, and they say, okay, you got to have a certain percentage in the voter, in the electorate, in order to recall a politician or, to bring somebody home and give them spanking. Okay, so a certain riding has to have a certain percentage of the people who voted. If you have, how well organized certain elements of the political spectrum are, and if you have a really effective conservative MP or MPP, and the opposition hates that, they can bring in all kinds of people, organize, force a recall, and get rid of somebody that's really the average person doesn't want to get rid of. So it can be used against you as easily in cases where it would be a negative, rather than disciplining a bad politician, they could use it to eject a good one to further their own aims. And that's the part about it that I am concerned about. Now, I'll let Jay speak to that. If you got any comments on that, by all means.
Yeah, short one. I mean, there's been talk about that, and certainly a big portion of the people who have come on board with the alliance, because like I said, we're made up of a lot of different groups that
right.
The Democratic reformers that have come on board who are contributing a lot. They that was part of their platform. They want to see the referendum and recall and all that. As for recall, I can't say whether it be yes or no, because at the end of the day, it would be the members that vote on that. Mm-hmm. So we're open to basically anything as policy, provided it's supported by those members. My personal feeling about recall is we do have it. It's an election every 4 years. And if you screw up, your voters say, we don't want you back, you know?
I suppose that's true.
So
now, Matthew asks a really good question. Will there be room for EDAs to have riding-specific platforms?
Absolutely. Very much so. And when we say the name of the party is Alliance, that's not just because it's a nice-sounding word. That's literally what we are. We are an alliance, and what it is a lot of basically independent candidates who are coming together under one banner, held together by one value system. So, yeah, when a candidate is out, you know, they say all politics is local. When a candidate is out speaking to their EDA and their constituent stuff, yeah, speak your mind freely. Again, understand that it's got to be within those values, but if they're a candidate, they would presumptively have those same values. So, yeah, speak to the issues that your constituents have, speak to the issues in your riding, and you will be free to work towards those. If we make government, if you're elected, the party is not going to step in and dictate to you. I mean, you are responsible to your constituents first and foremost, and that's the culture we're building here.
Okay, so the people up in Timmins have a whole different set of concerns than the people in Leamington do.
Yeah, and they're absolutely free to fight for that. And okay. Yeah, you know, actually, there was a question posed to me by someone, a supporter, and it was in reference to a couple of candidates, or I guess they were, I don't know if they were candidates if they were actually sitting MPPs, but it was in Nova Scotia. Two of them had been kicked out of two different parties because of stuff they said in their Facebook years ago. And they said, what are your thoughts on that? And I said, quite simply, if you don't like what those people say, don't vote for them, but we're not in the business of policing speech, and we're never going to get into that business. So yeah, absolutely. The freedom for candidates to speak their mind is there and needs to be if we're going to be fixing these problems.
Okay. Now, when this issue gets bandied around on Facebook, and I will admit I get involved in it and have had some sword crossing going on Facebook, it's just, I can't help myself. Sometimes not sometimes, but a lot of times, those who are people like I used to be, supporters of the PC party, as an example, will look at us and say, oh my God, you're going to split the vote. You're going to guarantee Kathleen Wynne is going to win again. Now, I'm going to let you explain who the target audience is, who the target voter is. But my answer to that, or when I hear that, it doesn't, see, what I try to get across to people is it doesn't matter if Brown wins or Wynne wins, we all lose, because Patrick Brown is a carbon copy of Kathleen Wynne. The policies are the same, the mentality is the same, so who cares what color the flag is? And it's the same, I can't get it through to some people's heads. They simply butt up against that. You're going to split the vote. They hate Kathleen Wynne so much, and I hate her too. Don't get me wrong. I hate her politics like you wouldn't believe. But I like to think that we can stand back a little bit and say, okay, if the tactic, winning the war means that we have to defeat an ideology, like if it hadn't been, and I'm not putting anybody in Canadian politics on par with Hitler. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just using an analogy here. If Hitler had been...
You're using the Hitler argument?
No, okay. Not at all. I'm just using... If it had been any other person but Hitler running the Nazis, we still would have had to defeat the Nazi ideology, no matter who was running it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing here. We have an ideology we're diametrically opposed to. Who cares who carries the banner? It's like in the old days, and you watch the old movies, when the cavalry charges forward and the flag goes down, or the British redcoats were carrying Union Jack forward and the flag carrier bearer got shot, they didn't stop and say, oh, the war is over because the banner carrier is dead. Somebody else picked it up and carried on. You had to wipe out the idea, not just the banner. So that's the part that just keeps slamming into it over and over and over again. So with that said, I want to let you address the idea, because we're always talking about vote splitting. Are we really guilty of vote splitting if we pursue this path?
You mentioned the ideology being the same between, for instance, you picked the Liberals and the PC. I like to joke that in the last 14 years of Liberal governments, the absolute best whip they've ever had is Patrick Brown. I mean, but, you know, no, we're not vote splitting, and I can tell you why. Because quite frankly, those three parties, and you drew the analogy between the two, but the big three, really, they all represent the same interests behind the scenes, you know? They represent those corporate interests. They represent those international interests. They represent, the only people they're not representing is Ontarians. So, no, we're not going to win those votes. The people that want to support that stuff, that big government, that. So what we're looking at is the people who don't feel represented by those ideologies of the three parties. And that's the folks who have stopped voting.
Really, alone voters.
Because there's nobody to vote for anymore. So you've got, in any given provincial election, about 40% to 50%, usually up around close to the 50% of residents vote. That means 50 to 60% don't vote at all. And it's not because 50 to 60% of this province doesn't care about their future or their children's future, because they realize that it doesn't matter who they vote for, they're not going to be represented. Well, we're going in to fill that void. We're not going in to try and take votes away from the PC. Those 40 to 50 that vote Liberal, NDP, PC, they're going to keep doing that. They're brand loyal. We're going after the 50 to 60%, which is the majority, who say there's nobody to vote for. We want to give them someone to vote for, someone who's going to represent them, their values, their families, their interests. That's it. So no, we're not vote splitting.
I didn't, and that's why I wanted you to explain that, because it's easy to fall into that trap. You know, people say you're vote splitting, you're vote splitting, you're vote splitting. That may be the common refrain, but it's the wrong tune, because you're singing it in the wrong church.
Did you ever see the movie Braveheart?
Of course.
Do you remember when the first time that William Wallace shows up to the battlefield and the three lords have got all the noblemen have gotten all their people together,
right?
And then Wallace rides up and some of the people were leaving, they were walking away, and they go, who do you presume to be that you would lead our army? He goes, if it's your army, why is it leaving? So if we're splitting the PC vote, I'd say it's not their vote to split if it's walking away. If it's looking for somewhere else to put its vote, then it's not the PC vote.
True enough. Andrew makes a good comment here, and I want to share it with you. I would love to see an end to wasteful and irrelevant programs like Drive Clean and return to business-friendly policy on the environment. What's happening with the lack of development within the Ring of Fire, or major companies moving out of neighborhood jurisdictions who are advertising better power rates, is a tragedy.
I'll say absolutely. One of the things that I would like to see us do, should we form government, is to go through a lot of the legislation that's been created, you know, even beyond the last 14 years, and start removing what doesn't work. You know, sometimes even with good intentions, these policies get put in, and then they become a monster of their own. And
good intentions are also the road bricks on a famous road, aren't
they? So we want to start pulling back a lot of that stuff that's been intrusive. We want to get back to prosperity. That's really, at the end of the day, we want small business, mom and pops, to succeed. Again, we're getting into an ideology, which is very important to our party, because we are about changing this culture. That is our intention and our goal, is to create a new culture. Anyway, so back to this. So what we believe is, in order for this province to be strong, families need to be strong. Families need to be able to have business, you know, and from strong businesses come strong families, come strong communities, comes a strong province. And that is what we're going to serve, those small businesses and the families. So to his point about repeal, yeah, we're going to get government out of your way. Now, about the Ring of Fire, absolutely, I think we all agree that needs to get opened up 100%, and it's got to be done. We will let that happen, but it's got to be done by that region. I mean, these people have to make their own decision.
No, just laughing because Matthew had to post again. He said, a molesting sunset clause is a great start. And then he says, no, implementing, not molesting. I had a feeling that's what you meant, Matthew.
So So opening up the Ring of Fire is something we want to see happen, but it will have to be the people from that region that drive the way it works, you know? Now, it's got to be in the interest of all Ontarians, but it's got to be something that's approved, accepted, and put forward by the people of that area. That's what we want to see.
Well, I think that anytime you're extracting resources in Ontario, as long as it's done properly, then that's for the benefit of all the people of the province.
Mm.
And I like the idea of allowing the people who are actually going to be directly affected to have a say.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already doing that with
say.
native cultures. Every time we want to lay a foot of pipe, we got to go talk to some indigenous group somewhere. So if it's important to do it there, why isn't it important to do it with everybody else who has a stake in this? Like if you're going to run a pipeline through my backyard, I'm going to want to have a say in it. Now, that doesn't mean it won't go through my backyard, but I want to have a say. And I think that that's a very important, just basically it's what landowners want, respect. They just want their property rights respected.
And the law upheld.
And the law, exactly, and the law upheld. For everybody,
Absolutely
not just the average common guy.
We're about the rule of law. And
I'm liking the sound of you, Jay. I think maybe I'll vote for you.
as far as the sunset clause, I think it's a great idea. I'd be happy to put it forward. I always felt that any piece of legislation should actually come with not just the legislation, but it should also have a kind of a preamble explaining what the need is that the legislation hopes to address, as well as how it hopes to address it, and then a metric for gauging its success. So it has to give, 1 to 5 year kind of, these are our goals, this is what we hope to achieve, this is how it can later be measured. And then it's revisited along that predetermined time frame. And if it's not meeting its goals, it's scrapped. And if the person wants to represent it, they go back to the drawing board. Because, one of the things there is we can actually discuss the merits of the legislation, not the emotion,
That's, that's one of the most dangerous ways to pass the law.
Happy.
I think that one of the things will be a lot of fun and probably fruitful too, spend the first year in office just repealing old laws. Going through the rule books and saying what is either damaging, is an unnecessary prohibition to the expansion of business and free enterprise, and what is just so archaic that it doesn't even apply anymore. Did you know it's still legal to drive a herd of sheep down Yonge Street, Toronto?
Really?
Yes. And maybe those are the ones headed for Queen's Park. Maybe that's why they haven't got rid of that law, because once a year they herd them all down Queen. Anyway, I'm being silly, but the law is real.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't want to waste time in Parliament on that, but the point is
the ones that are interfering with business need to go away, and the ones that are interfering with individuals exercising their rights need to go away.
Look at the College of Trades.
Yeah.
Sounds good until you find out what it is. Give me the hammer, and that thing's gone the first day. Now the unions will have a cow, but you'll employ a lot of young people that were unemployable before as apprentices because they couldn't find journeymen and foremen and construction type people who could take them on under the College of Trades. They were limited to how many apprentices they could take on. So this is just a way of giving people more experience so they can go and get better jobs. And the unions don't like that because that means they don't become part of the union.
Good paying jobs. I mean, those are great jobs.
Hey, listen, you know what? And when you're good, I've never asked, but I can imagine that somebody who's good at drywall makes a good wage.
I'm sure they do.
Because that's not a fun job. I've never liked doing drywall.
A lot of renos, and I don't enjoy it.
No, it's not a lot of fun. Okay, so let's get back on track here rather than getting down in the weeds. One of the other things I got to do is run a couple commercials. And when we get back, we'll have more with Jay Tysick right after this.
That's largely what we were. Oh, that suggestion is largely what we were talking about as well.
It's land grant patents is what that is.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the next segment, Andrew really liked the idea, and I'll share his thoughts with you for those of you who can't see it on Facebook. He says, I love the idea of having those from the area having direct participation in decisions. Too often, it seems, that decisions are driven via Toronto. I hear about it all the time from family in the Valley. Really strengthens the rural-urban divide. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And Matthew says, according to allowing tort law where property owners can sue those individuals or corporations that inadvertently harm their air, water, or land would also be a good start to environmental accountability. Matthew, we already have that. Those are called land grant patents. And that is something this party would absolutely respect, because that is the highest form of law there is, because it bears the great seal of England from Queen Elizabeth. And the way they're written, you can't get around them legislatively. So those laws trump everything else. So everybody who owns private property has a land grant patent, which means that you have to, if you're going to show up at somebody's property unannounced, if you're a police officer, you better have a warrant, or you better be willing to meet the owner at the edge of the road rather than just pull right up to the house.
We talk about the importance of restoring the prosperity of individuals and of families. And truthfully, all wealth is created by ownership, right? I mean, and land ownership is one of the key points to wealth. So wealth creation. So we would definitely uphold the rights of owners to their property to the fullest extent possible, because we want to see those people succeed. So whether it be land, which is certainly important, or even just, to your own business, like what you're allowed to do with your business. The government shouldn't be interfering. As long as you're not breaking any criminal laws, seriously, it's not the government's business.
Well, I've always said, one of the things I've always said, and I don't know how this fits in, but it's just in general, that we have the wrong people doing housing inspections. Okay, like you get a building inspector come around from the municipality, and I'm sure you've had it happen with your rental business, where they come in and inspect stuff. Well, what stake does the municipality have if your house burns? None.
Do you know what? Do you ever watch Parks and Rec?
Yeah, my wife watches them all.
There was one episode I loved, and I think it's so perfect for what we're talking about. Ron Swanson's character, he was walking his dog in the park, and bylaw came by and said, "You can't walk your dog here." And he goes, "Oh, hold on, I have a permit." And he pulls out a piece of paper. The bylaw guy opens up and says, "I do what I want, Ron." And I think we need to. That's basically the permit for anything you want to do on private property. Guess what? Here, private property. I'll do what I want. Go away. That's really. I mean,
I like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not against having buildings inspected to make sure that they're safe.
Sure. There's got to be safety,
but I think we should turn that over to the insurance companies, because guess who pays if that house burns? It ain't the municipality. It's the insurance company. So they should be the one that have to sign off on it, because once they've signed off on it, then they can't refuse to pay later.
I could see, instead of a house special, if you want to apply for insurance, because and again, we're getting into policy, which I can't really talk too much about because it's going to be driven by the grassroots. But I mean, I would think reasonable is, if you're applying for insurance because, that's a personal choice, then part of the application process, the insurance company is allowed to come inspect your house. If it's for you to live in privately, if you're not going to be, if you own it outright and your intention is not to rent out or whatever, it's nobody's business, at all.
Well, there's all kinds of, we could spend hours just talking about property rights. Yeah. So in general, though, the Alliance Party respects private property rights. And
immensely.
that the legislation written cannot be used to impinge on private property rights. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, and I was just reading Matt's comment, so I'm going to answer that directly. Matt, sure. Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, we already have environmental laws with regard to that, and private property owners do have the right to sue, and I think they should take every opportunity. I mean, when we talk about protecting the environment, that's what we're really talking about: clean land, air, and water. And the best, I guess, stewards of that are private property owners who sue people who damage their land and their enjoyment of. So,
well, there's the other thing is, I think that when it comes to, in general, when you're talking about policy, and it's kind of funny because the sentence sounds almost oxymoronic, where you say we're looking for efficiencies within the government. Well, the government by very nature is inefficient. So the first efficiency is to reduce the size of government. And now, depending on what the grassroots has, I can't imagine the grassroots saying we want bigger government.
No.
But I can imagine the grassroots saying, let's look at the size of government we have and decide what we can do without. Like, do we really need this pet peeve of mine? Perfect opportunity to vent it. Those little stickers that go in the back of the license plates. You know, do we really need those? So why not scrap the department, or at least the part of the Ministry of Transport that deals with that? That means you don't have to print the stickers anymore. There's a savings. There's some people who are going to have to go find work in the private sector. There's a savings to the taxpayer.
Well, I'm not going to speak to that. That's
well,
a
no,
specific
but just
thing that, I mean,
I'm just saying that's just my pet peeve, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking. This is not to do with the. I'm just saying, if you want to find efficiencies in government, there's places to find them. I'm just pointing to one of them, and saying, do that one, do that one, because it's $125 to register a 4-cylinder car. It's insane, and it's for no good reason. Anyway, you can tell it's one of my vents.
I think what we're really talking about here is there's two types of people and two types of voters. Those who feel that, you know, the government is there to serve them and protect their rights, and those who think the government is where rights come from and that everyone serves it. And I mean, we're definitely in the first category. We want to see a government that is responsible to the people, that's under the people, that, you know, that's why we're talking about real representation. You know, we're saying that where the candidates are free to speak their mind, because their job, they're not like government. Truthfully, we're not government as elected reps. We're the people's representation to the government. And our job is to be a watchdog over what that government does and make sure that it stays serving the people. So in that, there's going to be a lot that should change if we do our job effectively compared to what's happening now. And I take that very seriously. And I think everyone in this party and all our candidates do. They understand that big role that's being asked of them by those people. It's not just to go and take a government job and have that power and authority that goes with it. It's really to go in and fight to uphold the rights and the interests of the people who sent them there against the government, not as part of it.
Okay. Now, I brought up the Attorney General auditor. Yeah, her. Let me see if I can undo this twice and get it back. You dirty dog. I had it. I did. And maybe it's not on that one. Go away. Okay, the Auditor General's report. There's some stuff in here. It's on my Facebook page. So if I dump that, go away, go away. I said go away there. And if I scroll down quickly enough, let's see. Yep, there's that one. I posted it just before showtime, so it should be relatively close to the top. Come on. Studying history. Yeah, okay. Come on. You know what I got to do is go here. That helps. Yep, there's, and give it a chance to load. Here it is. All right. Now, I got this from the Toronto Star of all places. Okay, so this is some of the highlights. And you want to talk about, if you want to talk about policy direction, just let people read this. I'm telling you. So there's things about sick days for teachers, how there's that sense of entitlement, like, well, I've got some sick days banked, maybe I'll just take them off, even though I'm feeling fine. You know, that kind of mentality is the kind of mentality we've got to turn around. You've got Ontario not being honest with its concealing deficits, so almost $5 billion. You know, in today's government, people, it's so common and so, you know, so pervasive that nobody even blinks at this.
You know what that is? It's really, if I'm going to be honest, it's weak opposition. Like the people that are going there are, and this is what I was talking about in terms of the ideology. Are you there to serve the people, or are you there to serve the party or your own interest? And the reality is it's impossible for the average person to stay on top of everything that's going on. And even if they did and knew what was going on, how do you do something about it, right?
Right.
You speak with your vote, but when you got three parties that are all on board with the same ideology and really aren't representing the people, what do you do? I mean, that's why they need real representation. The weak opposition that we've had, or lack of opposition, is what's allowed this kind of stuff to go on unchecked, and is why so many voters are disengaging. And the truth is, I mean, you look at the options up there, you got Andrea Horwath, Kathleen Wynne, and now Patrick Brown. I think the voters are ready to see someone in this race with some balls. And
did you just say what I think you said?
It's a fact. He's been like, somebody's got to stand up there, point out when they do these kinds of wrongs, and do something about it. And that's what we want to do. We want to go in there and not represent our interest, but the people's interest, and restore this province. Like, this is absurd what we see going on there. You just read that report, and you read through the whole thing?
Well, it's a summary of it, yeah.
It's madness. I don't know how anyone could read that and not feel like it's time for a revolution. You know, and that's what we're offering. It's a peaceful revolution.
Yes.
We're taking back our government, literally, but we're doing it using the system of voting so that, you know.
So let me backtrack a little bit, because that was funny. So you're telling me then that Andrea Horwath and Kathleen Wynne don't have balls due to genetics.
Yes.
But Patrick Wynne doesn't have any by choice?
Patrick Wynne?
Well, okay, yeah. Patrick Brown doesn't have any by choice?
Yeah, well, I think of the three of them, probably Horwath has the biggest. But seriously, given the opposition that she's put to the Liberals, it's certainly insufficient.
Fair enough. Yeah, but let's face it, she's not the official opposition.
No, but I mean, Patrick is, and look what he's doing. He's their biggest cheerleader right now. I mean, he's out there whipping his caucus to support Liberal motions.
It doesn't matter what he says during question period. Who cares what he says in question period?
He's been ineffective, and he's failing us. And, you know, he's not the only one. I mean, it's happened before. But the thing is, where are we supposed to go when the opposition is cheerleading for the governing party? The people need a change.
Yeah.
And it's time for some real grassroots leadership and some real grassroots representation. That's it.
All right. Time for me to play another set of commercials. When we come back, I'll have more with Jay Tysick right after this. Stick around.
Do you think the ball's gone too much?
Yeah, it's a great day outside. Nice and sunny and warm. Oh, wait, that was this afternoon. Oh, it was actually it was a gorgeous day.
Yeah.
And my wife got stuck.
She
missed her class today.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, when you live on a dead-end road, you drive down it when it's wet, you tend to get a muddy car. And they put salt down, or have put salt down on the roads, because we've had some snowfall. So you blend the salt and the mud together, it splatters the car. Now, the horses, we have a couple little ones.
Did
they ever?
Yeah.
Did they ever? It looked like It looked like an artist painting. So she puts it into a car wash to wash all this off. Well, the front tire skips out of the rail.
Oh,
she gets stuck.
Oh, no.
That's why she was.
How did that happen?
I have no idea. But they came running out. They knew how to get her out of there. But by the time she got,
the first time it happened.
I was going to say, that's what I said to her too. I doubt that's the first time. It might be the first time for you, but it's not the first time. So we shall see. All right. Okay. Now we have about 15 minutes left in the show. Generally, what do you think? Going back to the Alliance again, when you look ahead into your crystal ball, what would you say is a successful result in 2018 after the election for the Alliance?
We're going for government. We're going to win it. Now, I'm not. Sorry, I'll speak to I'm not, and we're not ignorant. We know that that's lofty. We know it's unlikely. It's not certainly the highest likelihood, but we're definitely going for it. It has been done before, so it's possible where parties on their first run out have won. That being said, that's our goal. But we're realistic, and should we not achieve it, we wouldn't consider it lost. We believe we're going to be picking up seats, and we've got some identified where we have the highest opportunity to do so. I think we'll get them. I think we're going to get about 5-6 seats and push the current government into a minority, which would almost effectively make us the when I say current government, I didn't mean current. I meant whichever government comes up next would be the
well, it's the same
minority.
thing, different color.
Yeah, it's all one. It's all the NDP ideology. Because I mean, the Liberals have gone farther left to try and pull back votes. They're bleeding that way, and the PCs are following suit. They can't go left fast enough. So there's really nobody representing the people. Just those anyway. Back to the point. So we can pick up, but the absolute kind of last or lowest priority for us, and what we hope to achieve, what we'd still consider a win, is breaking the 2% threshold of voters. And the reason why that's important is because they changed the rules recently in Elections Ontario. So if you break that threshold, you get ongoing funding, which I think is wrong. I don't think they should do that. But if they do it, we certainly want to take advantage and get in there, make that number. And if we can make government, we'll do away with that rule. But in the meantime, the funding would be helpful. If that's all we did, I'd be really disappointed, but it wouldn't be a loss.
Okay, so the
5 seats.
If you look at it in tiers, your let's call it I won't call it a draw, but your first level of victory is to break the 2%. The first objective,
the lowest.
This way. Your first objective is to break the 2%. Yeah. After that is to get 4 or 5 people elected. After that is to form government. That's your hierarchy, or the way that people can look at this as
and in between those 2 top ones, there's forcing the government into minorities.
Yeah,
so that,
Well, if you have 4 or 5 candidates get elected in a house with only 300 seats? No, there's not even that many in the House of Commons. 124. Of course, there's 124 ridings. God, it's late. I know. 124 ridings. Yeah. So if you can steal 5 or 6 seats, or 4 or 5 seats, that gives you a tremendous amount of leverage. Now, it might not always pan out your way, but there's going to be times when they come walking down the hallway, knocking on your door, saying, what's it going to take to get your support on this or that? Well, let's talk about that. And that's the idea of being king.
Yeah, but not in the sense of horse trading, the way you're saying, in the sense of how do I best serve my...
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying that
the goal ultimately for us is to do the most good we can. That's why I got into this. I mean, I started trying to run for the PC. I thought that would be some good. And, from one thing to another, this is where we are. But the goal is absolutely to do the most good we can. And then that means forming government. But anything short of that, we still, within that, whatever we end up with, we're going to try to do the most good we can in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's kind of, because when you think about goals and accomplishments, what are the benchmarks that you want to see to give yourself something to work towards? It's one thing to have a lofty goal, but you have to have benchmarks along the way.
If it takes us 2 elections, we'll do it.
Well, yeah, that's right. If it takes us 3, but hopefully it won't take that long. But I do feel good
for the long run.
Yeah, exactly. This is not a game. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And I would rather a marathon because, well, no, I'd like a sprint because it's over faster.
Look, you can look at it this way. The problems we have didn't happen all at once. It happened slow and over time. And it's most likely that the solutions are going to happen the same way. If we can make government first time out, I guarantee there's going to be a lot of solutions coming real fast. But it's likely we're going to have to go in stages and just make small changes as we go.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's see. I'm just reading a comment. Okay, I'll get to that later. Shouldn't have done that because now I forgot what I was going to say.
We were talking about the goals.
Yes, goals. Darn it. It was right there on the tip of my tongue. Oh, I know what it was. When you have generally, like, I understand that each riding is going to be able to speak to its own issues. Okay, maybe that's part of the answer, but we have a huge rural-urban divide. And in order to govern effectively, there has to be, in my mind, a way of bridging that gap. Like, you've got to get country mouse to be comfortable with city mouse and vice versa. They don't have to live in the same place. They don't have to have the same lifestyle, but they have to be comfortable with each other. And I'm not so sure that's true right now.
Well, they certainly aren't right now. There's a huge divide. And the way that the reason those divides exist, it's not that they don't naturally possess the ability to work together. It's that one is given priority and preference over another, and that automatically breeds resentment. So the way that we'd address that, and we've spoken about this a lot, and I'd say, we're there to represent everyone, but we certainly feel for the rurals. We have a particular affinity for what they've gone through. So the way you do that, though, to solve that issue is give regional autonomy. And this is built into our party, is where we're going to actually download as much as we can to the regional governments. We want the decisions being made as close to the people as possible.
When you say regional, you're talking about municipal?
Regional in terms of through their groups or through the municipal government, if they, if that's where it naturally belongs. It depends on what we're discussing.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
If we're talking about school board, I think it's wrong what's happened over time, where the Ministry of Education has just basically taken all the authority for all the school boards in the province and their power of taxation away from them. School boards now, and it's not even their fault, but you elect your school board trustee thinking, oh, this is going to make some big change or whatever. Reality is all they are now is like glorified condo boards. They take care of the bricks and mortar. They have no decision on like the curricula. They have no decision on hiring teachers. It's all done by the province, and that's wrong, because the parents are not able to deal with the province when they have issues, and they can't, elect out the people in the ministry, like the bureaucrats in the ministry. That's why it needs to go back to the local school boards. There should be more school boards, and they should all have absolute autonomy. Another thing, and this is actually an example that was used by our executive director, and I thought it was brilliant. He had said, no, things that should be municipal, we need to restore that. And for instance, he brought up the minimum wage. Now, first of all, we could all argue whether or not there is a need for a minimum wage, and most of us would say if any two people enter into a contract privately, that's their business and government has no say. But if one wanted to put a minimum wage, it should be done by a municipality, not by a provincial government. And I think the provincial government should say, if you as a municipality choose to have a minimum wage and you have a reason for that, you're free to do so, but the provincial government wouldn't. Because, and the example he said was, $15 an hour, which they're now trying to go up to, which is horrible idea, but that's nothing in Toronto. $15 an hour you can barely live on. But you go out into some of the rural areas, $15 an hour is what they're paying skilled labor.
Absolutely.
And that's going to hurt people in that region, and I can tell you why. But that's why it's important that the regions decide for themselves if they're going to make those decisions. That should be done at their level, where they're closest to the people, not by the province.
You know what? I agree with you. If you had an ability to allow a municipality like the municipality that I live in out in Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards, there's 2,700 people. They run a dump. They've got their municipal offices in Killaloe, so they've got their, they've got to pay the mayor, they got to pay the janitor, they got to pay the town clerk, and all these different people. And if you're making $35,000 or $40,000 living in Killaloe, then you're not broke. You're not wealthy. Okay, I'm not trying to say that's a fantastic wage, but it's not the same thing as you pointed out, living in downtown on Toronto on Yonge and Bloor. You can buy. When I bought my farm back, a while ago, but my farm was 70 acres. I couldn't buy a condo in a bad part of Toronto for. $300,000 doesn't get you much in Toronto, but that would buy the whole farm, including a 2,400 square foot log home. Okay, so the economy of scale is so out of whack that I really like that idea of allowing, if you're going to have a minimum wage, let it be set by the people in that micro economy. And whether it's done by business or by municipality, they know what they can afford. They also know what they're going to need to keep people in there, in that local economy, to stay and want to work. Because if they can go and travel,
and to live comfortably.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, nobody wants to freeze to death in the winter. Nobody wants to roast in the summer, and to have a couple bucks in the bank account. So if you want to go and get a case of beer and enjoy it with your friends on a Saturday night while you watch the Leafs win, things like that, those are the little perks that's supposed to make life enjoyable. Okay. I don't know if they won tonight. When I was looking, it was tied 1-1 with Calgary. Anyway, we'll have to see. But the bottom line is those kind of ideas are, this is what I think a lot of these people that we're talking about, the people that we call them the don't bother me voters, who are just so jaded with politics. They don't think they've got any place to go. Nobody, it's all lip service. There's no substance to the promises. When they see these things start to unfold, they'll come back in a hurry.
I'll tell you, government, and especially this provincial government, has this ideology, this idea, whatever, that they know best on every issue, better than everyone, better than you. how your family should be raised, what values your family should
It's the ultimate of
have,
arrogance.
how much you should get paid, what, like, you know, and it's really absurd because we all know factually the best people to make those decisions about their lives are themselves, right? So government, our I guess ideology with regard to government is to get government out of people's way for those things, give them the freedom to do for themselves, and where they choose to have like a government to represent them, it's got to be as close to them as possible so that they can have
hold it
that direct
accountable.
impact, hold it accountable.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
All right, well, we've got about 5 minutes left. Did you have anything you want to tell people just to kind of sum things up this evening?
Not specifically. I think we've touched everything. I just really want to make that point that for those people who are feeling like the government doesn't serve you anymore, you're right, it doesn't. And you feel that there's no option. We want to be that option for you. We want to represent you. So please take a look at us, because we're sincere and we're going to do what it takes. And I think we've proven we're fighters, and that's what we're going to do on your behalf. If you should send us to government to be your representative.
And you can do that by going to Ontario-alliance.ca.
Mm-hmm.
Fill in the little form there on the landing page, and as information becomes available, you'll be on the mailing list, and we'll send it out to you so that you can get up to speed and get informed. And the very best way, the very best thing you can do is become a member. I mean, it's only $20, and that $20 will go a long way in helping us accomplish the mission of providing a good party for you to stand behind, that'll stand behind you and put your interests first for once. Wouldn't that be nice? Because like everybody else, I am sick to death of politicians who promise me a bridge where there is no river, and then don't even bother to try to give me what they promised after the election. I'm also not foolish enough to believe them in the first place, but you know, it's the analogy. I think it was Lenin who said that. Something about a politician is a man who would promise you a bridge, even where there is no river, and then dig the river to give you the bridge.
No, was that John or Vladimir?
No, I believe that was Vladimir. Either one, I suppose. All right.
I do, to what you said, definitely picking up a membership is important at this stage, because unlike the other parties where you said, they just want your money. You're going to give them $10, and then every now and then they're going to send you like a sponsorship letter. Please send us money. But you, as a member of the Ontario Alliance, will actually be making the policies that you're ultimately going to live with. You know, the things that will become legislation. You're part of that creation. No other party does that right now.
With any luck, they all will do it after we're done. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, if we can be successful and they see, oh, guess we have to listen to the people again, that's what wins.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Jay, that has been 2 hours. Thank you very much for being part of this.
Thank you.
I wish we had more time. Well, we've milked this cow dry, but you know what? It's been a fun thing to do. And I certainly hope people learned a lot, or at least that we piqued their curiosity, because there's going to be a lot more. So all I urge you to do is become a member, get involved with the creation. If you don't have a riding association in your area, why not get involved at that level and help build it? Because as Jay points out, if you want some real influence and have your voice actually listened to for once, this is the time to do it, is when the party's getting formed and getting put together. The bolts and nuts and bolts are all being threaded together, and the thing is taking shape before your very eyes. This is when you have the most influence. So don't wait. Do it now. Because it'll be something that you'll be able to look back on and say, I helped start that. So with that, I'm going to say we're going to wrap it up for tonight. Thank you all very much for participating in whatever way that you did. We certainly hope that you learned a lot. And yes, the Leafs won. They didn't tell me about the score, but who cares? They won. That's another 2 points to the win column. All right, so that makes my night. Okay, and I'm sure that I had at least a couple people in the pool get me a couple of points tonight. I'm in a hockey pool. I kind of have some fun with it. First time. All right, with that said, I will wish you all good night. Ubicete toss et amor, Deo CBS. Good evening, God bless. Don't let anything disturb your peace, and may you have a fair wind and a following sea. Let me finish this.